Ever feel like you're stuck on this hamster wheel of prayer? Asking God for the same stuff over and over, like he didn't promise it to us already.
Oh, tell me about it.
Well, today's deep dive, we're going to dig into a book that really flips the script on how we view our relationship with God, how we face challenges. We're talking about Andrew Wommack's book, You've Already Got It, so quit trying to get it.
Wow, that title alone, right?
Right.
That's a bold statement.
It really is.
It kind of throws a wrench in a lot of that traditional thinking we have about prayer, about faith.
Absolutely. So for those of us who maybe haven't cracked open this book yet, can you break it down? What's the core argument? What's Wommack getting at?
So basically, Womack's saying that through Christ, God has already gone ahead and provided every spiritual blessing we could ever need. And we tend to talk about these blessings as like, oh, someday when I get to heaven, or, oh, I'm just waiting on God to do this.
Mm-hmm.
But Womack points out that Ephesians 1.3 uses that past tense. God has blessed us with every spiritual blessing. It's already done.
Yeah.
It's not to say that life is going to be suddenly perfect and rosy and challenge-free, but it's more that our posture in the midst of those challenges should be different.
Instead of like this desperate plea to God to do something?
Yeah, like we got to convince him, you know?
Right. Okay.
It's more about, okay, how do I align myself with what he's already done?
It's a total game changer, that idea. But, okay, I'm going to be honest. My brain needs a little visual here. How does Wommack explain this? Like, if we already have these blessings, why does it not always feel like it?
So he uses this example of a TV signal. Think about it. Like, the signal's always there, right?
Right.
Broadcasting 24/7, whether my TV is tuned in or not, that signal's going.
It's there.
God's provision is kind of like that signal. It's always there. It's flowing.
So the problem isn't on God's end. It's...
Yeah. It might not be that he's withholding. It's that our receiver is maybe a little faulty.
Oh, I like that. So our faith is like that receiver, and if it's got static, if our faith is shaky, or we've got doubts clouding things up,
we're not going to experience those blessings fully.
It's like, ever have those moments where you're like, man, I've been praying, but it feels like my prayers aren't getting through. Like, is anyone listening?
Right.
Maybe it's not that God isn't listening. Maybe we haven't quite tuned ourselves in to receive his provision, his answer.
I think that's spot on, and I think that changes how we approach prayer, our faith, even spiritual warfare, you know? It's huge.
Okay, well, let's unpack that a bit, because I'll be honest, spiritual warfare, that can sound kind of intense.
For sure.
Like, I'm picturing this epic battle happening in another dimension.
Right.
Angels with flaming swords, the whole bit.
Yeah, and Womack would say, hold on a second, the real battlefield, it's not out there, it's in here.
In our minds.
Our minds.
In our minds.
In our minds.
Okay, hold on. Got to unpack that a little bit, because that's a whole different way of looking at it.
It is. It is.
So if we're not begging God to change things, to do these things, what does prayer look like in this context?
Yeah, so Womack would say prayer is less about petitioning God to change his mind about something and more about changing ours. Like, it's about really aligning our thinking, our beliefs with the reality of what he's already done. So, like, a simple example is, instead of, God, please heal me, right?
Right, which is usually my go-to prayer, let's be honest.
Totally. But instead of that, it's like, God, thank you that you've already provided healing through Jesus, and I ask for your help to, really grab a hold of that, to receive it.
So not about twisting God's arm, it's more, okay, God, let's get my head on straight.
Yeah, exactly, to align with what his will already is.
Yeah, okay, I like that.
And what's wild is this bleeds into spiritual warfare, too.
Okay, yeah, because when I think spiritual warfare, and maybe this is just me, I get kind of freaked out.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's intense.
Yeah.
Because I'm picturing,
demons.
Yes, like demons everywhere. I'm like, ah.
But Womack would say, the real battleground, it's not some far off, cosmic realm.
Right.
It's right here.
It's the battlefield of the mind.
The mind.
Okay, whoa.
Yeah.
Explain that.
Because think about it, how often are we battling, those negative thoughts, those doubts, those fears, insecurity?
Constantly.
Right. Like that voice that's like, you're not good enough, or God's not going to come through for you this time, or you don't deserve his blessings, like all of that.
And those thoughts, that's where the warfare is.
That's the primary weapon that's being used against us.
Wow.
It's not necessarily demons with pitchforks, although...
I mean, maybe sometimes.
Maybe sometimes, but it's more like, are we going to grab a hold of those thoughts and partner with them? Or are we going to recognize them for the lies they are and combat them?
So instead of picturing angels and demons, like, duking it out,
right,
it's more like, am I going to hold on to this thought that's telling me this is impossible?
Yeah, exactly. Are you going to let that thought, take root?
And that's the battle.
That's the battle. He even points to Colossians 2.15, where it talks about, Christ disarming the powers and authorities. Like, the victory's already won, right?
It's done.
It's done.
So it's not about fighting for victory. It's about
walking in it.
walking in the victory that's already there.
Well, yes, not letting the enemy, trip us up with those thoughts, hold us captive with fear, doubt.
Because that's easy to do, to fall into those traps, those thought patterns.
Totally.
This makes me think about, situations we face that feel impossible. Those moments where we're tempted to just throw in the towel.
Yeah.
And we're begging God to fix it.
Right.
What if, and it's like this is blowing my mind a little.
Yeah.
What if instead of begging God to fix it, the answer is to shift my focus?
Yeah.
To fight those thoughts that are telling me it's hopeless.
Yeah.
To start thanking him for the victory he's already given.
Yeah.
Even if I can't see it yet.
That's that shift. Yeah.
And that's tough. That takes like a whole other level.
It does. It's like next level faith.
Because we want to see it to believe it.
Right.
But this is like
believe it to see it.
Believe it to see it. Yeah, exactly.
He tells this powerful story in the book about, I think it was his friend who was trying to sell a house.
Oh, yeah.
And, they're believing God for, the right buyer, the right timing, all of that.
And it's just like roadblock after roadblock.
Roadblock after roadblock. And it's crazy because God had already lined up the buyers.
He'd already done his part.
But then it's like these impossible things kept popping up. And it turned out through, prayer, through seeking God, they realized there was spiritual warfare at play. There were these unseen forces that were literally trying to prevent what God had already set in motion from manifesting.
And that's what's so scary, right?
It is.
Because we can't see it.
We can't see it, and so we just think, oh, it's just life, or oh, it's just bad luck.
It's easy to just be like, well, I guess it wasn't meant to be, and give up.
Exactly. But what if there's more to it than that?
Right. And that's what's so, mind-blowing about this.
It is.
Because it makes you think, what about in my own life?
Yeah.
What about those areas where I'm praying, I'm believing, but I'm not seeing any movement?
Right. Is there something else going on?
Is there something else going on? And that brings us to, I think, a huge element in all of this, which is faith.
Yes. Absolutely.
Because if God's already provided it, why don't we always experience it?
Right.
Wommack says it comes down to our measure of faith. And I have to be honest, when I hear that phrase, measure of faith, immediately I'm like, oh, shoot, how much do I have?
Right, like it's limited.
Yeah, like, am I running low?
Right, like, gotta save it for a rainy day.
Exactly, gotta save it for the big prayers.
Exactly, which, that's a common misconception.
Is it really, though?
Yeah.
Because that's where my brain goes.
It is, and Wommack actually tackles that head on.
Okay, good, because I need some help with this.
He points to Romans 12.3.
Okay.
Which says that God has given to each one of us a measure of faith.
Okay.
It doesn't say some people get a bigger scoop than others.
So we all get the same amount.
We all get the same measure.
Okay, so it's not about how MUCH faith we have.
According to Wommack, no.
It's about something else.
It's about the presence of something else.
Which is?
Unbelief.
Yeah. So it's like we have this gift, this amazing gift of faith, but then doubt, it kind of sneaks in. It whispers these lies. And suddenly we're like, wait, I can't access this thing that God's already given me.
It's like this invisible blocker.
Yes.
We have the power, but we're not plugging in,
Yeah.
And he uses that example of the paralyzed man, you remember in the gospel.
Right.
Tries to stand up, falls down.
Yeah.
And it's not that he lacked faith. It's that the unbelief crept in and made him doubt.
Oh, man. That is so relatable, though.
Right.
Because I'll be believing for something, really going for it.
Yeah.
And then that doubt creeps in. It's like, but what if it doesn't work out?
Right. The what ifs.
What if you're not good enough? What if God's changed his mind? What if?
Exactly. And that's when, we got to combat those thoughts. We got to combat them with the truth. And he talks about being so intentional with what we're letting influence our thinking. Even just he tells a story about Smith Wigglesworth.
Oh, yeah.
The healing evangelist. He wouldn't even have newspapers in his house.
Oh, wow. Because it was just filled with
negativity.
Good.
Things that were gonna plant seeds of doubt.
Let's say garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly. It's not about, being naive,
Just
sticking our heads in the sand, but it's like
be mindful.
mindful of what we're letting take root in our hearts and our minds.
If we're always planting those seeds of negativity.
Yeah. If we're putting, poison ivy in our gardens and wondering why nothing good's growing.
Right, exactly.
You got to be intentional,
Yeah, it's like we're bombarded with negativity constantly.
Constantly.
So it's no wonder we struggle with doubt. It's like
trying to grow a rose in in landfill.
Exactly. And it's not just, the external stuff, right?
Yeah. So
It's our own thought life.
100%. Those tapes that play in our heads.
Yes. Those are the worst.
The negative self-talk and recognizing, okay, that's not God's voice.
Right.
That's the enemy trying to take me out.
Right. Got to fact check our own brain sometimes.
All the time. And this is where, Wommack's not saying, just sit back, passively believe, and blessings will fall into your lap.
Okay, good. Because that's not really how life works.
No, he's very clear about this. Faith without works is dead.
It's not enough to just think it. We got to
do something about it.
We got to act.
He uses that example of the woman with the issue of blood in Mark.
Oh, yeah.
She's desperate for healing. She's like, if I can just touch his clothes, I will be healed.
Yeah.
Her words released her faith, but she didn't stop there.
Right.
She pushed through the crowd, socially unacceptable for her to even be there, let alone touch this man.
It was a whole thing, yeah.
She's like, I don't care, I'm doing it.
Her actions showed her belief.
Exactly.
She didn't just think it, she did it.
That's what Wommack's getting at. It's like flipping that light switch on.
Okay.
The power's always there.
The power's always there.
But we gotta take the action to activate it.
So then, what are some practical things then? If we're saying, okay, God's already provided, I believe it, but I'm not seeing it, what's the step? What's the thing I need to do?
I think, first and foremost, examine your own heart rate.
Okay.
Where is there unbelief?
Okay.
What are those negative thoughts? What are those beliefs that are holding you back?
Identify it.
And
then?
then combat it with the truth. And then it's that step of faith, right?
So it's like a 1-2 punch, tear down the lies, and then
make a move.
make a move.
Yeah.
Even if you can't see it yet.
Even if it doesn't make sense.
Even if it seems impossible.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm telling you, this has been like an eye-opening conversation for me.
It is. It's a radical concept.
Because it really does just flip the script on how we view God's provision and our role in all of it.
Totally. It's not about, earning it
Right.
or, begging for it. It's like,
It's already there.
it's already there. It's all right.
We just got to tap in.
Tap in.
Wow. And on that note, I think we got to leave it there for today's deep dive. But, if this is resonating with you, if this idea of you've already got it is like sparking something,
Yeah.
definitely check out Andrew Wommack's book. It's a challenge, I'll be honest. It's not always easy to wrap your brain around.
It's counterintuitive, right?
It is. It really is. But it could radically change your whole walk with God.
For sure.
So until next time, keep diving deep.